I am honored to have Danny Phillips join us today. I'm really excited to talk with Danny. Him and the Phillips FamBam is his family name. I think the first time you guys reached out to me, I was looking back, was I shared something about me struggling in my football career and
Yeah.
learning like that it's such a difficult decision to know whether this is the right thing for me to be doing. Like, is this just a challenge that I need to overcome? Or is this an indication that I shouldn't be doing this anymore? And I think you guys responded to that. That was right around the time you were closing the doors to Phillips Kitchen and Bath. Can you
Yeah.
talk to me about what that process was like and how you made that decision?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it was a decision that was like lingering for a while.
Yeah.
And like when you're passionate about something and you work hard for it, you're like, oh man, even though everything's telling you like, hey, just let it go and move on to something new,
Yeah.
you hold on to it. And that's what kind of resonated when you were talking, because you're like, I think it was when the Redskins had called you.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh man, I've been there. Like you have this passion, you want to do it, you've been doing, this is what this is what you're confident you're good at. And then you're like, but maybe this is a sign like I should do something else. And the scary part is the unknown,
Yeah.
And so things happen where I'm here in Vegas. My business was in California, and I've been up here for 4 years there. And slowly I was just like, man, I need to be there, but I can't, and it's in order for me to make it run and be as profitable as I need it to be, I have to be there.
Yeah.
And once that decision was made, I'm like, man, I there's no way I can't. I'm happy with my family here. We had the YouTube thing that was starting,
Yeah.
and I know how to do the reglazing. So I'm like, hey man, I can just do it here. And so it was really just about letting go. That's what the hardest part. Everything, logic, reason, everything said you got to let it go. But it was just like my heart that was holding it,
Yeah.
and then I was just like, and then we made the decision, and Tina and I, we Tina for so long. Tina, trust your wife with whatever she says, man, because they know. She's like, hey, you got to let it go. You got to let it go. And I'm like, because I had my parents working there, so you're just like, you feel like, oh man, what's mom and dad going to do? They're older.
Right.
And you're and so, we're a very Christ-centered household. And we were just like, we prayed a lot. We put Christ at the forefront, and we're like, it's time. He's in control of the timing for everything in our life. And we're just like, this is the time. There's something else that's coming for us,
Did you feel a breath of fresh air, or was it more of like a daunting kind of fearful thing after you had finally made the decision?
As crazy as it sounds, like total breath of fresh air. Like It was a huge like burden. It was like, I don't want to say burden, but like it was just lifted off my shoulders. And I was just like, wow. Because I was up here, my mind was half in California, and I was split. My mind was just like crazy.
Yeah.
And so it just allowed me just to disconnect that completely and just focus on things here. And it's actually been like, it was like a blessing in disguise,
Wow, that's great. It sounds like actually, obviously different industries, but pretty similar context where, like me with my football career, and you played athletics growing up. So you kind of get this mentality of like, I haven't gotten to my goal yet, or it hasn't worked out yet. I'm just going to push through and it'll happen. And you were running a successful business. So that's a little different than mine. But like, for me, it's tough because like, I keep getting signed and, there's little glimmers of hope that maybe it could work out. And what a cool story it would be if we were able to make it work out. But it just, I'm still in the agonizing part where I'm like, do I just completely like walk away from it or what? Like, do I, it's hard, and there are so many personal factors too. Like you had your parents working for you, and my dad like kind of dreams that I play in the NFL, and like, he wishes that he would have pursued it harder. And so there's so many different dynamics that go into it. And I really respect how you listen to your wife and you were able to step away from the situation and like really decide what decision was best for you. So respect to you on that, Danny.
Thanks. And you know what? My parents were so supportive after, where I thought like, oh man, I'm going to put them in a bad situation and this and that. Nah. And so it was all in my head.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And like, when you think about it, like your parents are probably the most supportive people of what you do. You know, my mom's been supportive of all the crazy decisions I made, you know, throughout my life. And she's still there. She still loves you. So, you know, it was in my own head, like, oh man, you know. And so when she was like, or my parents were like, hey, you got to do what you got to do. Then I was like, oh man, that's such a weight off my shoulders. Like, man, why couldn't you just told me this longer ago, you know? And then it would have happened, because I was holding on to it for partially because of them as well.
Man, you have a great perspective on that. I'm curious to get a little more into the nuts and bolts of that. Did you have any conversations with people that you would like recommend people in a similar situation having, like whether it was with obviously you talked with your wife and with your parents, but like pastors or like mentors, or how would you recommend people navigate that for themselves?
Well, I definitely feel like you need to be around people who support you, you know, in the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows. You definitely have to be around those people. But, you know, a lot of it is just kind of, it's self-reflection, and because ultimately we're the decision makers, right? And then it's self-reflection. You're like, all right, this just has to be done. You know, I mean, in this situation, I really didn't have any mentors that were like, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that. But, you know, maybe if I would have put myself in a situation where I would have had them around more, then maybe they would have told me sooner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I definitely believe in surrounding yourself with people who support you, but also have your best interests in mind, which sometimes is hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Wise words though. The move to Vegas, what sparked that?
We get that all the time. Like we didn't have to. We just came visiting some friends, and we were like, man, we like it out here. It's family oriented. I saw in the neighborhood, I saw kids playing like street ball, walking to school, you know, kind of like my old days where we would play street ball out in the front and, you know, riding skateboards and bikes to school and things like that. I was like, man, this is like the old school neighborhood. And we didn't really I didn't see that as much where we were. We were in California, and I'm like, man, we really liked it. And at that point, I had a project manager in the office, so I was already kind of stepping out of the office. So there was really nothing holding me in the home there.
Yeah.
You know, and except for the easy access to the business.
Yeah.
But then we came out here and we looked in the area, and we just kind of fell in love with it. And so there was no real reason aside from the fact that we just felt good here. And so I guess that's the crazy thing about Tina and I, is like, we just go off that, and we just feel like, and the way things worked, things lined up. And then we just said, hey, when you put things in the hands of the Lord, like you kind of get that confirmation, and you're just like, all right, this is how it's supposed to be. And then sometimes you don't know until 2 years down the road when you're looking back 2020, and you're like, man, it all panned. That's why. You find out the reason why, you know?
Yeah.
So
I love those moments when you can look back and see kind of how it all played in.
Yeah.
To work. But so a lot of people listening are probably familiar with you guys on YouTube. I want to hear how you guys got into that.
I hope so.
Yeah.
That was a friend of mine. He sent me a text one day. His name's Aaron. He's in California, a childhood friend. And we hadn't even been talking for a while, but he just sent me a text out of the blue and was like, check out this podcast. It was a Tim Ferriss podcast. And I checked it out, and it was with Shay Carl, and Shay Carl was just talking, and I was like listening to it, and he literally was just talking about the YouTube. And this was 2 years ago, about 2.5 years ago. And then and he's like, I called him later. I said, hey, why did you send me that? He's like, I don't know. It just reminded me of you and your family. Like, you're always posting on Facebook, and you're always doing this. Like, I just reminded me of you and your story. Like, you know, I grew up, and I was little crazy. And then I found Christ and kind of changed my life and had a family and everything. And he was like, so, you know, Shay Carl was talking before how he was going through, he had personal struggles and he changed and transformed. And so he was just being real open in that interview. And it's just struck me. And he was talking about YouTube. He's like, man, we got videos and then we got a $300 check. And then he was like, dang, this like, you went and cashed. He's like, I went and cashed it and it was real money from videos. And then he's like, then I was like, he had a goal of like, all right, I'm going to try to get this to pay my mortgage. And then boom, he's like, it did it. And then he's like, what the heck is this game? You know, I'm in. And then when I was listening to that, I was like, all right, let's, you know, I talked about it with Tina and we're like, let's just try it, you know? And if you look back at our first vlogs, if anyone's listening, I say if you look back, but I'm not sending you there. They were nothing like now, you know?
Yeah.
I'm sure you know how it is when you first holding the camera and all that.
Oh, man. Well, first of all, for those of you who are listening and don't know Danny from YouTube, him and his family have a family vlogging channel, which I would, again, highly recommend checking out. It's called Phillips FamBam, FAMBAM. And, you know, you can find them with, what's the hashtag you guys use on Instagram? Is it FamBam?
It's hashtag Phillips FamBam vlogs.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Or our Instagram is Phillips _FamBam.
That's right.